Dua to the Most High, from that which we emanate. Dua to the sacred ancestors, the vessels of our humanity. And peace and blessings to all of my African families. Today's subject is the pre-colonial history of Sierra Leone. And I shall start with a proverb that says, if you don't know how you come out, you don't know how you go. In other words, without a history, we are inconsequential, we are degraded, and we are flunkified. History is what illuminates our future. And in this series, I will proceed to dispense with European and Arabian historical falsifications. And I maintain that history is the light that illuminates the present and the future. That history is the key that unlocks the door to the present and the future. And I maintain that the African today personifies tragedy. Tragedy because of the ignorance of our history. Tragedy because we flaunt the names of Europeans and Arabs unbeknownst of the constant assault on our psyches. For how be it that the parents of humanity, the parents of all of civilization, allow themselves to be reduced to flunkies by their children? And the Europeans and Arabs are our children. Oh, we have abdicated our divine parental role and have allowed the juveniles, the Johnny-come-latelys of Europe and Arabia to dictate our reality, to diminish and delete our history. We have inverted the parent and child relationship. Thus, we have been reduced to mendicants, beggars. We have been reduced to a state of backwardness, a state of arrested underdevelopment. And oh, it galls me to concede that we personify memory loss, hence our retrograde state. And that our memory loss is the fuel for the Europeans and the Arabs who dominate us. And that without our memory loss, they cannot be what they are. My dear African families, the colonial history of the land the colonizers called Sierra Leone is not an objective history of the land or the people, no. The arrogant audacity of Europeans and Arabs to reduce the history of an ancient people to 500 years or so is the greatest insult to our intelligence. The colonial history, which is a whitewashed, condensed, doctored account of Sierra Leone, is analogous to a distorted one-page account of a 2,000-page volume book. And if our history, which is our story, does not threaten or overthrow the Machiavellian history that our captors and our kidnappers implanted in our psyches, then we are not studying history. Then we are comprehensively ignorant of true history. For up to this day, we do not know the political or economic dynamic in a name. What's in a name, dear African? Power or powerlessness? What does the name Sierra Leone evoke? Does it evoke our history, our land, our people? Or does it evoke memories of the namer, his sponsors, and their deception? I shall deal with that later. I maintain that the name Sierra Leone is a reductive and deceptive name that deliberately buries the land and indigenous people to obscurity. That the name devalues our history and our rich heritage and our culture. And if you are patient with me, I shall elaborate in due course. We did not call our land Sierra Leone, the Portuguese did. As a matter of fact, Pedro de Sintra, to be precise, he did. The question is, what was the political and economic reason for Pedro de Sintra, this thug? Why did he name a land that was inhabited and named by the indigenous people? Oh, we have got to wrestle with words. We are exploited, subjugated, and victimized by an absence of knowledge of words and word power. We are ignorant of the political and economic function of words, and a great part of the oppression of our people occurs at the point of word usage. We have to be able to recognize how language is used as a weapon by those who dominate us. And that when you let a people dominate you mentally, spiritually, and psychologically, they implant a spirit in you, and that spirit takes over your body, your desires, your behaviors, and your perceptions to carry out their wishes, and that is tragic. I repeat, words have power, and words are not mere means of communication. Words have histories. Words represent political experiences. Words represent economic intentions, political intentions. Words are the organizers of thinking and behavior. They're not mere means of sharing ideas, not by a long shot. We degrade ourselves by associating with the words used by our enslavers. Words are the means by which people manipulate each other's consciousness, and through the manipulation of their consciousness, their behavior, their vision, their perception, and the way they relate to each other. Why do Europeans and Arabs name everything they encounter? And why are we chronically ignorant of the political, economic, and social function of a name, of words? That name is the weapon used to manipulate and whitewash or delete the memory or history of a people. And it is criminal that most of us are ignorant of the destruction to our psyche caused by maintaining European and Arabian names. Oh, that the African does intense damage, assault on their psyches when they call themselves Muslims or Christians. They devalue their humanity. Cognitive dissonance in the highest. For if you knew your history, you will not adopt European or Arabian names. I am saying that names have a spiritual and psychological function, and that presenting an alien name consistently to the brain corrupts and distorts the destiny of the personality. There's power in a name. Europeans and Arabs do not use African names in their realities. Then why must the Africans continue to adopt the names of their captors, to adopt the names of their kidnappers? We must remember that names in African culture, and all cultures by the way, is essential to the lifeblood of the culture. Names are chosen carefully and consciously because a name tells you three things. It tells you your history, where you come from. It tells you about your land. It tells you about your identity. It tells you about your destiny, who you are and where you're going. So to call yourself a European name or Arabian name is to divert your destiny to Europe or Arabia. Know this. During the enslavement process, which is the second stage of colonialism, of course the first stage was the captivity and the kidnapping. The first thing that was taken from us was the name of our lands, to be replaced by their names. And what does their name denote? The name denotes that our land, first and foremost, is their property. Sierra Leone is the property of Europeans. It is the property of Arabs. The deep African spiritual meaning in names must be reclaimed and restored. And I shall remind you of the ancient proverb that says a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. Think on that. There is power in a name. Words have power to elevate and resurrect. And at the same time, words have power to paralyze and destroy. Words have a political, economic, and social constituent. Your enslavers cannot teach you this, lest their dominance collapses. The name is a window to one's history, one's culture, and one's land. And when you hear the name, I repeat, Sierra Leone, what is triggered in your mind? What is triggered in your consciousness? And for most of us devastated with Caucasian savior complex, it is not our rich ancestral history and civilization, but that villain, Pedro de Sintra, and his band of thugs who discovered a land that was inhabited for over 2,000 years before he wriggled out of his mother's womb. Or our condensed colonial and imperialist so-called independence in 1961, which is nothing but a sham. No African state is independent. That's just foolishness. And if I were to equate our memory as a people to an electronic device, it means that we are operating on zero memory, that the vast majority of us are actually operating on zero memory. And what is the value of any electronic device or even a computer with zero memory capacity? No value. Absolutely useless. That is where we're at. To know yourself is to know your history, and to know your history is to have access to your memory, and to have access to your memory is to know your story, and to know your story is the currency of supreme consciousness. We must remember that history is the barometer of humanity, that history is power, that history is memory, and memory is the standard of humanity. History is our ancestor. History is our present and our future. History is knowledge. History is wealth. History is supreme consciousness. History is wisdom. History is freedom. History is culture. And history is medicine. Ashe.